Here I am almost 16 years eating carnivore. I wish I would have found this 20 years earlier, 30 years earlier.
Dr. Lisa Wiedeman.
As I suffered probably from the time I was 7 years old and got my easy bake oven. Started a very long, horrible, progressively worsening, disordered eating.
After overcoming a 25-year addiction to sugar and processed foods, you are a huge help to so many people when it comes to overcoming food addiction.
The first step is really recognizing it as a true addiction. For me, mainly it was just shutting off the switch that I wasn't going to keep going back to those addictive foods. Most people are just like, what? It's just food. You're not really addicted to this stuff. And I really? Well, where are you at right now? It is really sad that our healthcare system is a sick care system.
Hey everyone, I've got something exciting to share. I'm heading to Meat Stop 2025 and I'd love for you to join me. This is going to be an intimate carnivore convention set right up in the beautiful Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. You'll get to hang out with me and learn from some of the best voices in the carnivore world. And guess what? Dr. Lisa Wiedeman, who I'm hosting on my channel today, will also be joining us. Get your tickets now before they sell out, and don't forget to use code TheCarnitarian for $25 off. I'll see you on the Smokies. Today we have on the channel Lisa Wiedeman, who is widely known as the Carnivore Doctor. Lisa is a medical professional with 32 years experience as an optometric physician and an advocate for the carnivore lifestyle. After overcoming a 25-year addiction to sugar and processed foods, she embraced a meat-based diet, which inspired her to educate others about its health benefits, including reversing diabetes and halting macular degeneration. For the past 14 years, Lisa has been coaching individuals to eliminate medications and improve their health, combining her medical expertise with a love for cooking healthy carnivore meals. She also hosts vacation destination retreats around the world, creating a supportive community for those seeking guidance on their journey to optimal health. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to the channel.
Thank you so much, Linda. Totally my pleasure to be here.
It's awesome. The first time I got to meet you actually in person was like last month at the Charlotte meetup. I was so surprised to see you there. I was so happy to see you there. That was awesome.
Yeah, I kind of pulled a surprise visit because I wasn't sure I could pull it off. And I was like, yes, this is so awesome. You know, whenever we get to meet face to face people that are really just kind of our internet friends, it's just so empowering, so magical, and so motivational because, you know, we all bring our own story into this. And it's just really great to share it with each other and all the people that came to attend the meetup too.
Yeah, it was just so great. I mean, it was my first meetup. I know you're a big fan of meetups, but it was my first time. And I just was overwhelmed with the amount of people that showed up that had these incredible stories to share and just that sense of community. It was fantastic. It was just really great. I was very happy to be able to meet you. It was awesome. So, Lisa, let's get into it. I mean, you've been a carnivore now for a very long time. You started back in 2009, is that correct?
Correct.
So, what initially inspired you to do this? This was not popular yet. It was, it was like forum based. It was not all over Instagram or YouTube at the time. What made you start a carnivore diet? How'd you get into it?
Well, yeah, there really was no Instagram back then. And it was really, for me, so fortunate that I stayed diligent in trying to seek an answer because I suffered probably from the time I was 7 years old and got my easy bake oven, started a very long, horrible, progressively worsening, disordered eating. Gosh, you know, when I think back to how long I suffered, I never gave up, though. I knew there had to be some sort of reason, some sort of answer. Was I the only one secretively binging and hoarding and hiding food and doing these weird behaviors? And, um, you know, I happened across in an internet search, this forum of people. It was zeroing in on health, Charles Washington. And fortunately for me, I stuck in there and kept reading because I thought, oh my gosh, these people are really quite bizarre. They're eating meat and drinking water. And really? But as I continued to read that evening of March 9th, 2009, there were all sorts of people sharing their journeys in individual journals that you could just pop in and read. And there was two in particular journals that caught my attention, of women who had resolved their eating disorder with this. And I was like bug eyed. And I said, well, I don't know if this is healthy or this is the right thing to do, but I'm jumping in and starting, and I will research along the way. And fortunately, this amazing group of people, just a lot of just intelligent people who came to it for all sorts of different reasons, as we know, being here in this space, right? They were like, let's read Fat of the Land, Stefan Williamson's, book, and Not by Bread Alone, and think long and hard that ancestrally this really makes sense. And on and on. And I was just so fortunate that I found that, and I thought, wow, I wish I would have found this 20 years earlier, 30 years earlier. And I know a lot of people think the same way when they say to me, wow, I've been doing this for 2.5 years, but gosh, my life would have been so much better off if I had found it X amount of years ago. And so it's interesting, here I am almost 16 years eating carnivore, and I'm still telling my story how back then, 16 years ago, I wished I was right in that same spot. Gosh, I wish I would have. But you know what? It's all okay. Our bodies are here to evolve and get healthy, and no time like the present.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. Like you said, I feel very lucky to have found that same group. At the time I found it was 2015. They were on Facebook at the time. So I think the forum thing had transitioned. And yeah, those really intelligent conversations where we sat and sort of reflected on what's real food. And, I feel like it's fantastic now that we've got so much social media where we can spread the message to people who wouldn't have found it otherwise. Back in 2015, it was such a crazy thing to do. In 2009, it must have been absolutely like, did you tell anybody else that you were doing it, that you were starting it, your friends, your family?
My family did not. I went 2 full weeks and didn't say a word and just flew under the radar. And then, of course, I was like, all right, let's this is something really substantial here, and I'm not thinking I'm going to go back eating any other way. So, but yeah, it was really hard because I mean, think about it now. There's so much information out there as far as the cholesterol and the heart disease aspect of it. I mean, we've got Dr. Ovadia himself, heart surgeon who's on this way of eating. Um, it's it was just so much more difficult back then because everybody's like, well, really? Don't you think you're going to have a heart attack? And I say, no, thanks for your concern, but I've never felt better.
Right. It's pretty incredible that now we can say, point to those doctors and say, well, this doctor has different opinion of what you maybe have heard. And we can say, there are tens of thousands of people now doing this diet, having fantastic outcomes. And back then, you really were just sort of on your own. And it was hard to face the pressure of people saying, you're really doing some damage here. You're doing some damage here. So it's incredible that you were able to get over it, stick with it. Did you see improvements right away? And what were those improvements?
For me, mainly it was just shutting off the switch that I wasn't going to keep going back to those addictive foods, and actually realizing that this truly is an addiction. And yeah, I mean, it was so difficult. I called it, I was flying my freak flag because nobody had really heard of it. People say, oh, is that Atkins thing? Thank God for Atkins, because at least that put it on the map. But now it's such an incredible, beautiful thing from my aspect of it from 16 years ago, when it was really a very strange discussion to have with somebody, unless Atkins came into the conversation. But nowadays, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I'm hosting a carb sober cruise. I have over 115 people booked on the cruise, and all of these cruisers who have been calling my group cruise coordinator to book the cruise, this guy is now turned carnivore after listening to me, because I've had plenty of conversations with him through this whole planning. And 3 days ago, he went carnivore. He's so excited. He's got 100 pounds to lose or more, and a lot of health issues. And he's so excited. And for me to feel how incredible it is that this message really is getting out. And it's so much more normalized now that, I didn't have a boatload of people to point anybody to, but now I have a boatload of people. You want to learn about carnivore? Jump on the ship with us.
The literal boatload. That's hilarious. So let me ask you this, because you were a doctor at the time, did you feel like the medical training that you had gotten at that point was counter to what you were doing? And did that bother you at all when you first started, or in the first few years? Like, did you have any doubt in your mind that maybe this is really going to be damaging for me, my eye health? In the end, people talk about carrots all the time. And so, did you have doubts based on your training? What did you think of the diet?
That's such a intense question for me to answer, because it is really sad that our healthcare system is a sick care system. And it's really sad that we're not taught root cause healing. We're not taught nutrition. So, I mean, I still practice part time. I still see patients, and I see patients in an entirely different way now, but with caution. So, if anybody knows the story of Dr. Sean Baker, he's an orthopedic surgeon, and he ended up healing people by telling them to try this crazy little diet. They'd come back and cancel their knee surgery. He had less and less surgeries to do. And guess what? Hospital wasn't so thrilled, right? And I had um, run into professional issues, because if somebody's diabetic and they have bleeding in their eye, I am not just giving them a prescription for new glasses, telling them to, go talk to your doctor. You need to get your blood sugar under control. Why? Because I know what those doctors and dietitians tell them. And I can't rest my head on my pillow knowing what I know, without feeling an obligation to that patient to explain this is entirely reversible. You can
Mhm.
halt this, you can reverse it, you can get healthy. And some take to the information full on, and it's amazing. And others say, oh, no, 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 doc, you don't understand. I'm Italian. I got to have pasta and bread. And I said, okay, I'll see you in 6 months and we'll see how the bleeding is going. And you realize you can lose your vision from this, right?
Oh,
So there's all different aspects of it, but it's so difficult so here's the major dilemma. And uh, there's something that's called standard of care. And standard of care for an eye doctor is to tell patients to wear their sunglasses, of course, to protect their eyes. Cataracts, macular degeneration. Well, through a lot of knowledge, research, learning, analyzing data, talking to really smart people, neurosurgeons, other ophthalmologists, I understand that no, 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 we do not want to wear sunglasses. And that's not what's protecting our eyes from eye disease. And it's so important to not have sunglasses on. Our eyes are part of our brain. And when you put sunglasses on, you're signaling to your brain it's nighttime. You're signaling to your brain something that's never been signaled in the history of mankind until sunglasses were invented. And we need the sun, we need the photons coming into our eyes. Our eyes, this is like an incredible kind of thing to think about. Our eyes are not just for vision and seeing. There are so many different neurological connections and receptors in our eye and even on the surface, on the cornea of the eye, that are so important to signal the SCN, the suprachiasmatic nucleus in our brain, to give us proper circadian rhythm for all sorts of different functions. It's important not to block that signal by not just sunglasses, but regular clear prescription glasses also block the UV. I know it's the tint of the sunglass only helps as far as glare, but the same amount of UV is being blocked by the plastics that are in those. And also, most all contact lenses are now touting and marketing as a bonus that they block UV. And meanwhile, nope. I'm seeking out the contact lens companies that don't have UV blocker in them to give to my patients. So it's been, gosh, that I know I went off on a big
That's
tangent there,
okay.
Linda, but it's so, you know, I, I get so frustrated at the thought that there's so much truth out there that needs to be brought out and spoken about and told to people that you are not going to get in a medical office. And it's not that they're being malicious, they're just ignorant of it because that's not what they're taught. They're taught from these institutions that are all funded by the pharmaceutical industry. You know, I have patients will come in, doc, my eyes are so dry, they're burning, they're tearing, they feel gritty, and they want a prescription, and what's the latest and greatest. You've probably all seen them advertised on TV, right? Restasis, Cedra, all this, right? I don't want to give somebody a prescription. What are you going to do? Use a prescription medication for the rest of your life? Let's figure out what's causing this. And guess what? It's your food, and it's your food diet and your light diet. It's what you're doing. We're spending so much time inside, and we are meant to be outside.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm with you on this. That circadian rhythm is so important, and I'm so glad you brought it up. I mean, that whole idea of the light diet, and we'll get into that more, I think, I hope, later. And then the food. I mean, so when the patients come to you and you can speak with them, you feel more openly that they might be receptive. Do you get a sense that there are some patients where you're like, I'm not going to even attempt to get into this with this patient, but I can get into it with this patient?
I always attempt, always, because it's that I just want to feel I've done everything I can to the best of my knowledge and capacity to relay to this person how important this information is and how adamant I feel that it's correct. And it's difficult because there's times where, if let's say I have this dry eye patient and they're there and they're telling me all their symptoms, and they're like, yeah, I use those lubricant tears and I'm putting them in 6 times a day and it's really not helping, and I'm not writing the prescription. The next words out of my mouth are, what's your diet like? What do you
Mhm.
eat? And they're like, oh, I eat healthy, I'm vegetarian. Okay, alrighty then. Let's roll up our sleeves because
Right.
we got a little
Get
work to
ready
do
for
here.
it.
But so that one's typically a big, big challenge because that's a whole separate entity that we don't even have to get into. But I still do have a discussion gently. And the thing that's really bothersome is, with the diabetics, when I talk to them, I said, you know, what's your diet like? Oh, I eat healthy. I said, what'd you have for breakfast? I had a bowl of oatmeal and a banana. All right, let's talk about this. And they say, and then if I try to go into a bit about the carbs and reducing carbohydrates, and they say, oh, my doctor's really happy with my A1C. It's all the way down to a 6.4, and it was a 8.9, but he said, I'm doing great. And that's all they walk out of that office going, wow, it's all the way down to a 6 point. And I'm like, oh, no, no, no.
Wow.
And it's just being, I said, it's being brought down by medication. The problem is still there. We need to correct it because it is doing damage. There's kidney issues, there's heart issues, there's vision, ocular issues that don't care what your A1C is. And but it does care what you're putting in your mouth. And that's tough, and I'm I have so many people who come to me in this carnivore keto world and say, "Oh, can you tell me if carnivore can help my wife has glaucoma, or can you tell me I have peripheral telangiectasia, da 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 da." And I'm like, "All right, let's just lay this out here. When you eat an optimal, nutrient dense, human ancestral diet, your body wants to heal. And you've heard the stories. People heal their eczema, people heal their gut issues, their IBS, their Crohn's, their arthritis, right? Your body isn't going to, you got to think it's also your eyes are part of your body. It's not going to just ignore this organ system and so just think to yourself, you're on a healing journey. You probably spent 5 or 6 decades treating your body like a trash can because we didn't know better and all this delicious addictive food. We can get into that, how there's addiction specialists on board, right? You have to really think about that. You can heal and you can reverse disease, and anything is possible. Now, I will say end stage scarred macular degeneration where somebody is blind. I'm not holding out hope that somebody's going to start eating meat and drinking water and all's going to be good, right? But there's so much information, and it's never too late. I mean, I have people in their 80s who come to this and do remarkably well, and actually, yes, do heal a lot of things. I can't tell anybody specifically about any particular diagnosis other than ones that I have had some patients who have had significant issue with blepharitis, meibomian gland dysfunction, and they were at their wits' end getting lots of styes, chalazion. And I said, I know this sounds wacky. Shh, let's not talk about it. I didn't tell you, but this is what you're going to do. You're going to research this because I'm not going to put you on long term low dose antibiotics for this problem. There's no magical drop for this problem. Okay. You need to get to root cause. And so there are a very small select few who are extremely receptive, like this gentleman was. And lo and behold, 6 months later, I happened to have held my first Northeast meetup that I had started about 5 years ago. And it was just after the quarantine shutdown period. And there was 8 people who came to my home for this little meetup. And I opened the door. He comes in. He goes, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "You look familiar." He's like, "My name's Rob, blah, blah, blah." He goes, "I'm the one who told to," he goes, "I'm down at my high school weight. I lost 35 pounds. My eyes are perfect. And I just needed to come and hug you and thank you in person because this has been the greatest thing." Because evidently, when I talked to him that day in the office, I said, "Go on Instagram and just follow this little crazy account called Carnivore Doctor and find lots of others and just see what you think." And so there's
Oh,
amazing stories like that, but you have to be willing and wanting to make a change because we all know this is not easy.
it's very hard. And those patients that come to you that get that advice from you, how lucky are they? Because, like you said, they're not going to get that advice from any other doctor. There are so few that really understand what you understand and have some credentials to sort of back up what they're saying. I mean, when I say stuff, people are like, "What do you know?" But when a doctor says stuff, it comes with so much more weight. I mean, what specifically is it in the foods that people are eating that are causing the eye problems? Do you find, is it the high sugar, the high oxalate, just the carbohydrate load in general? Is it the seed oils? What are the things that people really need to take out first and foremost, if say they don't want to do carnivore strictly, where are the priorities for what's causing the eye issues for people?
Yeah, the main thing to understand is that we need to eliminate certain, I don't want to say a whole category because, like you said, we don't have to say everybody has to go carnivore, but go whole food. Eliminate sugar, grains, all seed oils, all processed foods, right? We can start with that. And that would do a remarkable change in the majority of people. So let's say meat, seafood, eggs, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. I don't, I cringe because, well, nuts have a pretty high level of linoleic acid, and that's not really good for your eyes. So let's eliminate nuts too with that other category. But yeah, that would do a world of good. But I'm going to say equally as important, and it's more so now in the past couple years that I've been diving down the quantum biology rabbit hole. And I don't like to just call it circadian rhythm because I feel that people just look at that as, all right, so yeah, I get sun in the morning and maybe a little sunset, and it helps me with my sleep, right? That's the
Mm.
circadian rhythm. And it's so much more than that because of the toxic level of artificial light. We should not really have any artificial light entering our eyes. And so it's called ALAN, ALAN, artificial lights at night, which are particularly harmful. And I'm it's interesting. I'm as passionate now to talk about wearing the blue blockers using, so I have like, I've even replaced so this is a bug light, and in my recessed pendant lights right here above in my kitchen, I have, yes, yellow bug lights. I have all sorts of different red light, like this is a motion detector where if I walk by just red will glow. And I have even some rechargeable ones. And I even just got, this has got amber in it. So I can walk around at night, not have my lights on, and have just amber lighting my way. And I know this sounds crazy. I don't know, Linda, where you first started seeing and hearing this, but, I'm a follower of people like Sarah Kleiner.
Sure.
I do a lot of listening to Dr. Jack Cruz. He's a neurosurgeon who's just brilliant. And I used to think like when people were talking about changing out a light bulb in their house with a red bulb, I'm like, oh boy, I wonder what their spouse thinks of that. That's kind of crazy, right? And I'm like, huh. And then seeing people wearing these yellow. See, I've got my doors open here, so I have outside light coming in. I've got huge 4 panel, the whole wall is open. So I know at least I'm getting that right now. But normally, all day when I'm working on a screen, a phone, a laptop, an iPad, I've got my blue blockers on. Why? Because it is really damaging to our eyes and our eye health. Not just that, though, our entire body's health. It really impacts everything because remember, our eyes are just a connection to get the signal to our brain. So, yeah, that's a biggie. I think, as important as what you're putting in your mouth is the light that's going in your eye. You want the sunlight in, you don't want any artificial lights. And they're outlawing the incandescent bulbs. Those at least had a full spectrum, but everything we have now, the LEDs and all pretty much our bulbs now and all our screens are so blue light toxic that it's like my next passion of letting people know. I feel like we're at least making big headway on the food issue. Now I really think it's as important to deal with the light issue.
Yeah, I agree with you. There is just so much artificial light that we're getting constantly. As soon as we wake up, we're checking our phones, and that blue light from our phones is hitting our eyes, which is does not match up with the natural spectrum that we should be getting in the morning. Or we're putting on blue light blocking glasses, wearing them all day when we should be getting that natural blue light. And then, at night, we are, watching screens until midnight, it's a real problem. I have heard this myth though, like you had mentioned previously, that you've got to wear sunglasses out in the sun to protect your eyes from getting cloudy or getting yellowy. I just want to address that one point again, if you can. Is there any truth to that the sun and being in the sun during the day, the morning, the evening, sunrise, sunset, that damages your eyes?
Yeah. So one of the important things, just right out of the gate up front, is I'm going to say we are not talking about sun gazing and staring at the sun. Okay. That's just, let's just put that out there because, this whole thing of watching the sunrise, getting out, exposing your eyes. So it's looking in the direction and we're not staring specifically. You can actually at sunrise time look at the sun without at all worrying about that. But I just wanted to put that out there. So,
Mhm.
Linda, it's similar to if I were a dermatologist and you said to me, yeah, is it true that we should just be getting sun on our skin and not blocking it with sunscreen and clothing, right? And if I, as a dermatologist, knowing what I know and who I am, I'd be like, no, you want the sun on your skin. And the sun actually doesn't cause skin cancer. And the sun actually decreases your risk of 7 different types of cancer. Okay. So,
Mhm.
that's and then so switch it over onto, same thing as an eye doctor. I know it. I was just on Twitter before because there's some really interesting conversations that happen over there. And there was this eye doctor who was, because Ken Berry actually made a post on Twitter about sunglasses don't belong in front of our eyes, change my mind kind of comment, right? And boy, did this optometrist jump in and said, ripped him a new one and basically, how dare you with, the following you have give out such erroneous information and it's a well proven that the sun causes cataracts and macular blah blah blah, right? Well, no, 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 it doesn't, right? And to understand that it is because of combination of improper diet and improper light hygiene. I kind of like to call this whole thing light hygiene instead
Mm.
of circadian rhythm because I feel like it's it's expressing the both needing light on our skin and in our eyes and also not putting the detrimental light, right? So it's light hygiene, but those are the things that cause the problems. It's not the sun. If it,
That's
like, think logically, if it was the sun, ancestrally for millions of years, man's run around with no Ray-Bans, no Maui Jims. They were not like blind and trying to find their next meal because they had cataracts, right? But they didn't
right.
have sunglasses, right? Let's think logically. And to and if you want, and I'll get you the link to the YouTube video I did specifically. I think the clickbait thumbnail says why this eye doctor tells you to not wear sunglasses. And I went through a pretty good discussion about it. And I know it is so backward from every single person comes when, but my eye doctor said,
That's right. I mean, they're the ones selling these very expensive Maui gyms. So
right.
yes, they do. They say.
But Linda, in all fairness, those doctors do believe that everybody should protect their eyes with sunglasses, keep the UV off. It's
Yeah.
dangerous and damaging to your eyes. They truly believe that. So I'm not faulting them for being malicious and just snake oil salesmen to sell their glasses. And let's face it, sunglasses are really cool looking. And I like my sunglasses, but it but that is a biggie for there's cognitive dissonance. Well, and then here's another topic that comes up when somebody wants to believe what I'm saying and sees the logic in it and listens and hears it from a number of other experts like Dr. Jack Kruse and all these other people are saying, do not put your sunglasses on, right? These people they write back and they'll go, oh, but you don't understand. My eyes are so sensitive to the sun. My eyes are so sensitive. You know why? Because you wear your sunglasses all the time. So let's start not wearing them. And believe me, your eyes will return to its innate ability to be able to handle the sun. Now, of course, there are specific times where you use your sunglasses. If you're out on a boat, no shade, fishing for 4 hours, sun reflecting off the
Mm,
water, yeah, we're going to wear them, protect our eyes from solar keratopathy. You can actually get a bad irritation from a situation. If you're on the beach for 3, 4 hours, or let's say you're just going to read on the beach. You don't have to keep them off 100% of the time. Let's not be silly because I get annoyed when people start writing to me about that. Or if you're on snow, the reflection off snow is
mm.
troublesome. So let's be reasonable. Let's not take literally what I'm saying. We're talking about, I can't tell you how many people, you grab your keys, you grab your sunglasses, and out you go. Outside, whoop, got to put my sunglasses on because,
Absolutely.
oh, it's bright. It's bright. I need to protect my eyes. Nope. And so now, and I tell people, like, when you drive in the car, in general, your windshield does block the beneficial light rays anyway. So go ahead and wear them in the car. But let's see what Lisa does. I open my sunroof, I let the light in, and I don't wear my sunglasses in the car unless it's like particularly really bad with glare off the cars and I'm in traffic and whatever. But
Right.
yes, I still own sunglasses. I love my sunglasses. Yeah, I do. I do. But damn, I can't wear them as much as I'd like.
I mean, this is a similar thing for me. I used to be an absolute sunglasses addict, and I wouldn't go outside without my sunglasses. And I would, if I walked out without them, I'd go back in the house to grab them. And it was a habit, and I was absolutely convinced that my migraines were caused by the sun, and that when I would go out in the sun, I would sneeze. And I was like, well, I'm allergic to the sun. You get some people have that sensitivity. I was so sensitive to the sun. And I just don't have that anymore. I can go out without sunglasses. I can't remember the last time I put mine on. So that does change. Your eyes improve and your sensitivity to light improves.
Absolutely. I'm gonna send you a video. There is information. Dr. Jack Kruse, who like I said, he's brilliant, and pretty much all of the videos are like 3 hours long. But I'm just so intrigued. But I'm going to tell you in particular, there was a section you have to listen to that he talks about for somebody who sneezes with bright light. You got to watch it because
That was me.
he's telling he says that there's specifically that you have a dysfunction from blue light toxicity and wearing sunglasses too much that cause that. Yeah, really, really fascinating.
That's incredible. I
Does
mean,
that still happen to you?
no, it doesn't. This has completely stopped. It hasn't happened for me in years. I mean, since I was very intentional about not wearing my sunglasses outside, it's probably been about 3 or 4 years that I've been pretty intentional about it, and I've just stopped the sneezing. And I mean, it was since I was a kid. Ever since I could remember, that was something I did. My parents made fun of me because of it. Every time I went out in the light, I would sneeze 3 times.
Yeah, but that's interesting because you probably weren't wearing sunglasses as a kid, right?
Well, I was actually. Sunglasses, I mean, I remember wearing sunglasses in elementary school and, we had to have them for camp. So out in the summer, we all had our sunglasses on. And I mean, what was cooler than the big Laura Biagiotti sunglasses in the late 80s? They were so cool. So we all wore them.
Yeah, yeah.
So, anyway, what about the last myth I want to get into, and then I want to do the speed round with you, is the one about age. Is it inevitable that our eyesight will deteriorate with age? Is it a hereditary problem or an aging problem, or can we avoid it completely with diet and good light hygiene?
Well, yeah. So here's the question. We don't really have a good cohort of people to go by. Like, people are eating their ancestral, clean diet and who live most of their day outdoors. But I'm going to say, forget the genetics thing, because I could say my dad had pretty bad macular degeneration. Am I thinking, oh boy, genetically, I'm doomed, right? No, no, my dad ate a lot of mayonnaise and and then of course switched over to when he knew better by watching Dr. Oz on TV to use I can't believe it's not butter and you know uh I- you know uh, whatever. I looked at it like I'm not destined to that because I know better. And so let's take genetics out of the equation. The only thing I feel like genetics is like, both my parents and my brother all carbaholics, carb addicts, addicted, right? So I think there potentially is some sort of just like how I think a to also be an alcoholic. There might be a little genetic thing there, but that doesn't mean I can't go carnivore and obliterate that whole aspect of it, right? But um yeah, age-wise, I'm going to say, and here I am again thinking, dang, I am so annoyed that I didn't know this blue light toxicity 15 years ago, right? Because I can't I cringe to think, and there's a lot of people who are listening to this now too, who spend their day at a desk at a computer underneath artificial lights, literally staring at a screen all day, right? Well, all my patient charting on a computer. I would finish, computer in the exam room with artificial lights, and then I'd go back to my office at the end of the day. At least 2 hours, I'm staring at the computer, clicking through
Mm.
each patient's charts, finalize. I'm like, damn, all that time, all that time, I needed to have blue blockers on, and I believe that, and I'm really curious if there's going to be an actual way of knowing that macular degeneration and cataracts are going to be remarkably less in our population as carnivores. And
Mm.
maybe that will come about because I'm in the so my health care now. I got out of the health insurance because that was really annoying, paying high premiums and never going to the doctor. So I do crowd health now, which is an amazing health care, and they have what's called carnivore crowd. So if you qualify by having either low enough visceral fat or a low enough fasting insulin, you are in a subset of healthier carnivore people. All right. And so I'm hoping that maybe the database will show as that group ages that we're not we're not going in for cataract surgery, right? We're not getting injections for macular degeneration. And there's so much more that needs to come out about this. And I'm just blown away by different things. I'm like a sponge for trying to get the truth. And Dr. Jack Cruz spoke about his father-in-law, and it's rather a little bit too long of a story to get into here, but basically his father-in-law had a very bad bone break of his leg when he was up on a roof, and Jack had him doing red light therapy 4 times a day to help heal the bone because it needed to heal before they could set it or whatever. Well, lo and behold, and this is a gentleman who was getting injections in his eye for macular degeneration. He went to his ophthalmologist, um, and the macular degeneration was gone after
Wow.
that period of doing the red light therapy. And his bone healed so well, they couldn't even detect where it was broken. So I'm kind of blown away by this whole red light therapy thing. And now I'm going down that whole rabbit hole to try to understand that better because I do truly want to help as many people as I can get the correct information. So sometimes I hesitate to say something like that on here, but it's information that's right out there on a podcast that he did. And I think, for anybody, it's devastating to lose your vision. And if there's something that can help, we need to learn about it.
I love that. I'm going to go down that red light rabbit hole with you. I've got, these large red light panels, and I'm a big believer in the red light therapy and how and its healing properties. I've used it on my shoulder for a shoulder thing I was having, and it really heals. I don't really quite understand the mechanisms, but I understand that it works.
I
It's
know, and then
fantastic. I'm going to,
it penetrates, you can it
yeah.
even through your clothes, like, you don't have to be naked in front of it's not like a surface thing on your skin, it actually is in depth, and so, yeah, it's interesting, and it's supposed to do good for wrinkles, so I don't know, I turned 60 a month from now, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I think I'm gonna hope it's gonna help me out, so
Please. You're gorgeous. I've seen you in person. You need no help.
we all need help, Linda.
All right. So now I want to do something fun, which I like to do. Now we're going to do the speed round, if that's okay with you. And then I want to get into some addiction stuff with you after that, because I know that you are a huge help to so many people when it comes to overcoming food addiction. But are you ready for the speed round?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. Now, I always say you may or may not have already seen these questions. Here we go. If you could ban one food from the planet forever, would it be donuts, pasta, or something completely else?
Well, considering I don't consider donuts and pasta food, but if I had to ban some form of junk, I have to just throw out the term sugar.
Sugar. I love it. Which do you prefer, steak tartare or just a rare steak?
Oh, Linda, I love my steak tartare. I
I
just
love it
love it.
too.
Just
I'm
love
with you on that. People are completely freaked out by that bowl of of rare raw meat.
I
Yeah,
know.
it's delicious. Okay, well, what is your absolute favorite cut of meat that you would happily eat every day?
I'm just gonna have to blurt out ribeye. I know it's such a
Yeah,
common one, but yeah, it's just
it's a
a
good
total
one.
package of food. It's the right amount of fat and protein, and it's just juicy and delicious.
It's delicious every time. Here's the next one. Would you rather give up butter or heavy cream?
I'd give up heavy cream before I gave up butter.
Yeah. All right. Fair
Because you
enough.
know what? I love whipping some blue cheese crumbles in my butter and having it on my ribeye.
I love blue cheese and ribeye. Back when I did Atkins, I was all about the blue cheese and the ribeye. Oh my gosh, it was so good. So it was easy for me, right, to get rid of the vegetables. All I really cared about was the blue cheese and the ribeye.
Exactly.
So what is your favorite part of the day on the beach? You're a Jersey Shore lady. Do you love a sunrise or a sunset?
Yeah, so being on the East Coast, it's gonna be the sunrise because there's nothing like watching that fireball come up right above, right over the ocean. So when I'm
Absolutely.
on the East Coast, it's sunrise. When I'm on the West Coast, it's sunset.
Absolutely. I'm with you. That is just gorgeous. Tell us, what's your favorite carnivore recipe? I know you love, and you make such delicious ones. What do you think could win on a cooking show?
Oh, it would be and it's a it's a seafood bacon Alfredo, but on my YouTube channel, I think it's listed as a scallop or shrimp. I think maybe it's just listed as a scallop bacon Alfredo. We're going to put the link to it because by far that is like scary how quick and easy it is, but how just incredible it is. I mean, you mix butter, parmesan, bacon, a little heavy cream, a
Oh,
squeeze of lemon, and a tiny bit of seafood spice. It's just incredible.
I'm in. I want to do that. Next question. If you could pick a superpower, would it be super sight or super strength?
Come on. An eye doctor's got to
Right.
say sight. Easy one.
All right, fair enough. I'll give you that one. Have you ever had a patient try to convince you that a plant-based diet is better than a meat-based diet?
Any plant based eater tries to say that. And I just let them. That's great. I'm glad that works for you.
Just nod and smile. Is
I'm
that
so
your?
glad that works for you. Mhm.
Oh, it's wild. Okay, last question. Be honest. When you ask your patient one or two, is this better or is this better? Are those views actually different, or are you just checking to see if we're paying attention?
All right, so that's a really cool question because I actually did probably a year or two ago when I was in my exam room, I did a little video for Instagram on just that exact thing. Why? Because people are like, I get so anxious with that. I don't know. It's like, what are you about?
Yeah,
Here's
I can't pick.
here's the thing. And I actually usually do explain this because I'm who I am, but other eye doctors won't and don't. But I'm actually attempting to get those two choices equally blurry. And by you
I feel
responding,
like they're they're
when
very blurry. They're always blurry.
by you responding that, oh, one is a little bit clear, I turn a dial, a touch, and now the next choice between one and two should be even harder and go. And as soon as you're like, and you start hesitating, I know I'm really right about that spot, but we're not, there's really no, unless I'm pretty far off, then one might be really clearer than two. Right? But for the most part, we're pretty close. We're pretty close to where we need to be, and we're just refining it. And again, kind of, it's really a bad joke. I mean, because I'm they're supposed to be equally blurry.
Oh, it's just the worst. I feel like I'm being punked in there because I'm like, I don't know, none of this is clear. And then I come out with a prescription and I'm like, how did you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the real stuff here. Can you tell us? I mean, you've got this great phrase, and you gave me a sticker at the meetup that said "Suck it up, Buttercup," and I love that. I love your sort of direct approach to helping people overcome food addiction. How does that phrase "Suck it up, Buttercup" sort of like embody your approach, and what is your approach?
Well, the first step is really recognizing it as a true addiction. And most people are just like, "What? It's just food. You're not really addicted to this stuff." And I really, well, where are you at right now? And have you yo-yo dieted? And have you been good? And then we're back in it again, right? And when we say back in it, it's you're back into your drug of choice, what you're turning to either for comfort or from just long-standing childhood habits. We a lot of times got rewarded with food, right? So we sometimes just fill an emotional void, and turning to food and it's detrimental, inflammatory, disease causing food. We're not talking turning to ribeye in those moments
Mm.
of stress, right? So when you know that this food does not do your body good, and I always say, here's the barometer: what's going in your mouth? Is it leading to health or harm? There's two choices, and you have 100% control. Well, I have people say, well, I don't know. It's just so hard. How do you do it? I don't have the willpower. I'm like, suck it up, Buttercup. You know what? Making change is not easy. It's never easy. We are creatures of comfort, habit, routine. Don't think for a second it's going to be easy. So you got to dig your heels in and do it. And you need some tough love because abstinence is the only way out. There's no alcohol program that says, all right, you can have a shot of tequila next weekend. We'll taper you off. Or, oh, you've been good for a month. Why don't you give yourself permission and but we're going to limit it, right? Like that does not work for them. And trust me, it does not work for anybody listening out there who's has a predilection to eating chocolate or ice cream or chips, or I don't care what your DOC is, what your drug of choice, what you turn to. But the fact that you're turning to something that you know is detrimental to your health and you continually do it is the definition of addiction. It's also the definition of insanity, too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that tough love is so needed. There's this culture lately of not just everything in moderation, right? We hear that all the time, but there's this culture of just let people be happy. You know, this is who they are.
You only live once.
You only live once. Life is for pleasure. Life is for living, all of these. And it's so detrimental to people when they don't get any guidance from their parents, their friends, their spouses to do better for themselves. I love that you're willing to sort of put your neck out there and say to people, I'll be the one to tell you the truth. You've got to suck it up. And
Yeah.
it's not going to be
Well, and so
easy.
yeah, and we have to also let's just say that yes, that's a term to think about, and but there's a lot more to it. I mean, you know, I want people to understand that this is a carb sober life. All right. I don't have sober behavior around carbs. And it's okay. If somebody says, "Oh, you have to have pleasure in life. You only live once." Yeah, I only live once. I got one trip around the block here. I don't want it to be diseased. I've seen what my dad went through. I watched him die for 15 years. It was a slow suicide. It was horrible, right? And when people say, "Well, you got to have pleasure. You have to, what do you, that's crazy to deny yourself." I'm like, no, I'm denying myself medication and doctor visits, right? And people say, well, it's
Mm.
so boring. Don't you get bored? No, what's boring is waiting in the waiting room at the doctor's office and waiting online at the pharmacy for prescriptions. That's boring. It's not eating a ribeye is not boring in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I feel like eating this way allows us to have so much more quality of life than you'd get from a moment of pleasure of eating anything that's going to cause you harm in the long term. It's sort of like a no-brainer for us at this point, but it's so hard for people to get over those addictions. What do you find is the most motivating thing that you can say to somebody who's really wrapped up in a carb addiction?
Yeah, so the the there's a few really important things, and it's understanding your why. What is really driving you to get yourself out of that position? And there's in my experience, in my journey, and in coaching people for 15 years, it is engaging and interacting in a community. You need to not feel like you're just this weirdo. Because, actually everybody else out there eating pizza and pasta and cakes and whatever, food that's not food out there, they're the ones that are the freaks, right? They're the ones that are eating food that does not belong in our bodies. It doesn't come from earth, right? So it's so important because that is the number one reason why people will slip into what I call the carb ditch. And it is for mainly the social reasons. When you have friends, family, and coworkers who are naysaying at you, nitpicking at you. What are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Don't you think? Da, da, da. Right. So getting yourself involved in a group is so important. Plus, it really does help for the support and accountability, but it's just amazing the connection that you feel with others who are on this same health journey, who are overcoming the same addiction. And I know I keep using that term addiction, but it's because it really truly is an addiction, and many of us have experienced that whole yo-yo dieting and don't think for a second that if you keep going back to your drug of choice that it's nothing more than a relapse. You are still in your drug. So it's tough though. I say you need a lot of tools in the toolbox. And in my member group, I go live 3 or 4 times a week, and just keep connected with everybody. We have a little book club in there. I have a whole resource. I have a Why document that everybody has to really pay attention to and fill out and follow certain protocols to get yourself to the point where you're able to go without any taste of sweet. That means sweeteners too, because most people cross addict. And I say it's like changing seats on the Titanic. You get off sugar and you're on stevia, and stevia is not a health food, health or harm.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Right. Well, I'm glad you brought up. I'm going to link to all of those things that you do and the community support that you um, give. And I would also like to talk for a second. You do these great beach retreats. Do you have any beach retreats coming up that you want to mention?
No, so I had all my beach retreats were here at the Jersey Shore, so October was the last one, but I will say I am going to be intently, again, because this is all about community. It's just the most amazing part of this whole thing for feeling supported and that this is normal. But yeah, I have my carb sober cruise. So yeah, I have these wristbands that say carb sober cruise that everybody's going to get when they get on the ship. And then you flip it inside out and it says hashtag allergic to seed oils.
Nice.
And so anybody who's on this, across a ship with 3,000 people, but you're out and about and we're going to eat together. I'm going to make sure to the best of my ability that there will be no seed oils on our plates. And yeah, so I'm going to be continually, I'm actually planning the next one for 2026, but the one for 2025 is February 1st through 7th. I'd love to have you join. This is not one where you're inside listening to lectures all day. Nope, we're going to be out in the sun. This is all about just coming together, community. We're going to dine together, walk up on the top deck in the morning to get the sunlight. I'll do demos. Actually, I have Fred Hahn, who's the slow burn weightlift expert. He's on the ship with us. So we'll probably do a little demo in the gym. And Steak and Butter Gal and Guy are coming too. So it should be
Awesome.
a pretty epic experience. I
That's going to be
this
so cool.
this ship isn't going to know what hit them.
I hope they're stocked up on beef. And I'm going to be able to see you in 2025 for sure. You're headed to Meatstock,
Yes.
right? So that's
Yes.
happening May 17th and May 18th is that weekend that Wired for Healing is putting that on. So I'm excited we'll get to hang out for that too.
Yes, that'll be great.
I want to thank you so much for coming on, for taking the time, hanging out with us, teaching us so much. I appreciate your perspective on everything and all the great tips that you've shared have been fantastic. Can you tell everybody, where they can find you on socials? And I'll put links to all of that below too.
Yeah, I mainly post on Instagram, tiny bit on Facebook. I try to go in there and pay attention to it, but it's Instagram and YouTube. I have two YouTube channels, Carnivore Doctor and Carnivore Eye Doctor. So the eye one, I'm trying to just put all the eye related stuff, but my main channel is Carnivore Doctor on YouTube. And I try to be really good about answering questions and comments. And I go live every Tuesday night if anybody wants to jump on and ask questions live.
Awesome. Thank you again, Lisa. I really do appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thanks, you too. Thanks, Linda. Thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. It's been so great talking to you. Take care.
All right, bye.